Go to Sharida and ask you the same question. Obviously not a relative of Dr. King yourself, but the words have rung true for a lot of Americans, a lot of black people around the world, not just Americans. Do you think that the words have been realised in today's society?
I still think that we have a lot more work to do before we can say his dream was truly realized. I mean, there have been some progress, but in some cases, as you can see, what's happening all over the country as we continue to lose lives senselessly, it just seems like it takes us a step backwards.
Institutionally, do you feel like the support is there in order to achieve the kind of change that is needed? And I'm talking here from government, but also social movements as well.
Well, I think that there are times when we feel like that collectively the social movement is something that I definitely believe is moving in the right direction. There are times when, in general, it feels like we have the support. It sort of waxes and wanes, but I think we need to, whenever we have those times when it feels like we're all in sync, it's when we have to really rally together and push the narrative forward.
How do effects like the Jacksonville shooting, how does that impact you when you hear that it was racially motivated?
Well, it's like, unfortunately, it's happening so often that it's not something that has shock value anymore. It just seems that there overall seems to be this diminished value on the lives of Black and brown people. And so when you hear these incidents happening over and over again, there's no shock. But what it does do for me, and I think many other people in the movement, is just pushes us more to say there's still more work for us to do.
Let's cross back over to Alveda. I think we've managed to reestablish the connection. Are you back with us, Alveda?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me? I hope you can.
Hey, we can. Thank you so much for making time. Thank you so much for making time. It's been a busy few days for you, the 60th anniversary of Dr. King's remarks. And I'll just ask you once again whether you feel like he would be satisfied by some of the progress that's been made or not at all at this point.
I was a teenager in the 1960s. I got married in '69. And one thing that my uncle would say, we must learn to live together as brothers, I'll add as sisters, or perish together as fools. And he's in his own speech, he said, add righteousness and justice together. He talked about a check of insufficient funds. So those are some of the things. And some of that is definitely still here today. He also said we must learn to live together as brothers and sisters, and we are one blood and one human race, that we're not separate races. I think he would want us to remember that. The other point, and I hope it doesn't freeze, you have to do this in every generation, every decade, and on every platform.
Right.
Because if you forget if you erase your history, you're going to repeat it again. So that's why all this stuff about burning the history books and locking all the Black kids in a classroom away from everybody else and telling them, this is happening in Florida as well. There's a school and the Black principal agreed to have the Black kids put in their own separate classroom. No, you don't separate. You come together, act like human beings, and learn human dignity and to care about each other. That's something Martin Luther King Jr. talked about in that speech. Cashing that check for insufficient funds, dealing with racism and systemic racism. Laws that are written into our laws, totally opposite. He said he had a dream, it's rooted in the American dream.
Yeah.
That's in that speech. So you have to remember these things, but you have to deal with it. Yes, I agree with the other speakers. There's more to be done, and it must be done in every generation.
Bonnie, in the studio.
Just say really quickly, I was a teenager in the 60s too. And I can say, on one hand, absolutely, progress has been slow. But in the 1960s, I would not have dreamt of a Black man being my father wouldn't have imagined that. He could not have imagined that, okay? He could not have imagined a Black woman as Vice President of the United States. That would not have been possible for my father. My father was from Mississippi. That would have been impossible. And my friend is the Director General of the Smithsonian. And that was something my father couldn't have imagined. So I agree with everybody. Every generation, we got to start over. We got to let people know where progress has been made, but also know that there is a long, long way to go. Long way to go.
Well, Esther, sitting in the studio here, representing the British side of things, listening in from, and we've got 3 strong Black American voices here talking about this, saying we've got a long way to go still. What does it mean to you to hear that?
No, I think they're absolutely right. And obviously, like I say, Britain is not America, and there are different issues, but there are some similarities. I mean, obviously, when we talk about police brutality in the US, we can't map that context onto Britain because it's completely different. The social dynamics and the interracial dynamics are completely different. But they are right in the sense that there's always work to be done. And there's, every generation has to fight for its place and fight for the renewal of its values. And I think that's important. In the case of Britain, obviously, we have different types of issues, discrimination and injustices are usually linked with social class as opposed to just race or just ethnicity, and so it's a different struggle. But there are underlying similarities in the sense that every generation must continue to reiterate the values that keep us progressing and keep us together. And I think it's obviously an honor to be here with Bonnie.
Well, it's an honor to be with you. It's an honor to be with you, and it's an honor to hear that the young voices also know that every generation has to take Dr. King's words and make them their own. Not only take the words, but make the words their own, and never forget the ancestors because of all the struggle that the ancestors went through.
Let's cross to Alveda for the final words then on that. Alveda, if you were to take any of the words that Dr. King spoke that people should make their own, which would they be?
I am a guardian of the King family legacy. My daddy, Reverend A.D. King, Daddy King, Mama, and all of them. So we are one blood, one race with powerful, beautiful ethnicity. Let's learn to celebrate it and stop killing each other.
Those are good, strong words. Thank you very much, Alveda King. Sharida as well joining us. Thank you also for your insights on this. And also here in the studio, we've had Esther and Bonnie chiming in on this. It's been great speaking to you all. I've learned a lot. Bonnie, particularly about your experiences as a teenager, listening to that and how it's inspired you.
Once you see something like that, and it is important to know that he did that on the spot. And that's what was so powerful about it.
Doing it on the spot, that's what it's all about, from the heart. Thank you to all of our panelists. That's it from me tonight. Wherever you're up to, make sure it's uncensored. Good night.